Hello and welcome back to episode 20 of the Hooked on NRL SuperCoach podcast. I'm your host Sol and I'm joined by my co-host. There's no Fish today, fellas. Unfortunately, he was unable to make this podcast. He's had a busy day at work and he also picked up a new car today. So you guys have just got me for tonight. We'll see how we go. Obviously, this is the first time I've done a solo podcast, so I'll do the best I can. It should be quite a bit of a shorter episode today. I'm not going to go through the YouTube stuff to start. We're just going to jump straight into, firstly, how Fisher and I both did on the week that was, and then we'll run into TLT and then also trade and skipper plans at the end. So, kicking us off, we'll have a look at Fisher's team first and how he did on the weekend. So as you can see, Fisher got a 1065 score, which made him see green arrows of 1,800, and he's ranked just over 5.5K now. The main telling points on his side, as you can see, Herbie, who he's had for a very long time, and he brought in Karaz as well, who got 93. So that centre wing looks really strong. He also brought in Isako last week, and so some good trade-ins there. The downside, though, he also brought in Hiroti, who got 14 and is now out for 4 to 6 weeks. So he looks like a trade out, and it's a bit unlucky there for him, he's copped a couple injuries in recent weeks, especially to his centre wings with Lehigh and Tamale and someone else as well thrown in there too. So a bit unfortunate on that front. He could have actually seen some bigger green arrows if he didn't captain Turbo. It seemed like a good play on paper against the Titans. Turbo didn't have any strapping on pre-game. Would have been a huge pot if he went nuts, but he just hasn't looked the same, hasn't looked as himself this year, and he just got 48, which is a bit unfortunate. And now he's down to the lowest price I think we've seen him in ages, and there's actually rumours of him being moved to the centres after this buy round, which is pretty interesting. Other than that, like holding Nath White proved good for him, and then Blake Brayley was the other key talking point for him. He got 102, which is a monster score and was a huge pot as well. So yeah, it's good to see Fish with some green arrows there, and hopefully he can keep it up this week. He sent me through his trades before recording. So this week he is looking at fading Teddy again. He's done it all season, and he's at this stage he's looking at not getting him in just because of their bye next week, and obviously he's a bit expensive as well. It's going to be a tough watch for him against the Cowboys. Tedesco playing the Cowboys, who just got beaten by 50-odd points versus the Finns. But I do like his trade-ins with Turbo out and Cleary out into Hughes and Eli Katoa. I can't knock those trade-ins at all. The Storm have finished their buys for the season. They've got a really good run of games. One of the best teams in the comp. They're both at good prices. Yeah, so I really, really like those. Moving on to first place now. We've got Jet Speed, who's obviously he's been very well known. If you've been watching since the start of the season, he's always been right up there, number one, still right up there too. He's in rank 6, so it's really good to see you doing well, mate. And then we'll go over to my side, and then we'll jump into team lists really quick. So for my side, as you can see, this is a side that I fielded last week. I guess the big talking points for me were, unfortunately, had no Sharp and no Olakau'atu. Well, Olakau'atu was there, but he copped an injury, and then Kaloamatangi got injured as well. So pretty bad on the injury fronts, but a lot of people are in the same boat. My trade-ins, however, were pretty on the money, and they did save my week. So I scored 1,013 points, which saw me have minor red arrows of minus 28. Down to rank 492. So I'm still inside the top 500 and I can't complain too much. But yeah, my trade-ins really did carry the side. So I brought in Herbie last week, who, as you can see, got 150. Also brought in Isako, who got 84. And I brought in Nakora, who was a bit of a pod play for me, and I'm really stoked about it, getting him at sub 500K, and he dropped 108. So pretty happy with all those guys. Everything else pretty standard. Captain Tedesco, and I decided to fade the loop of Garrick in the end. He got 93. I just thought that, I may as well just back Teddy in. I was feeling a Teddy big game, and he did go well. Not as big as I thought he could have gone, though. But 97 as your captain, you take it every day. A lot of 30s in my squad, however, which I'm not too stoked about. You see Drinky there, Billy Smith, Sandon Smith, You got Hubner, Olukwatu, all these guys doing pretty mid. So I copped a few of those, which is a bit of the downside to my week, I guess, and as well as obviously the injuries to Sharp, Olukwatu, and Kolomatangi. I think that rolls us nicely into team list this week. So, as you can see, for the Tigers and the Raiders is our first game on Thursday. Obviously, we've got Origin tonight as well, which we're really looking forward to. It should be a good game. It'll be interesting to see how players back up and if they do back up, because the majority of Origin players have actually been named apart from the Penrith contingent. So for the Tigers, not too many changes for them or too much to touch on. Luai's named to back up, which is a pretty big deal, especially when it's a one-day turnaround and he is coming all the way from Perth. So it'll be interesting to see if he backs up. And then you also see Talon De Silva make his way back onto the bench. So if you're looking at Api Coruscant, he's probably no longer a go. Terrell May is obviously the standout Tigers buy, and I wouldn't really be looking at too many other options here other than maybe a Jarrell Skelton in your draft league. But to the Tigers' credit, they do have a good run now. They're through their buys now also, as well as the Storm, as I mentioned previously. So these guys will play the next major buy, the mini buy, and give you a good string of games if you do look at bringing any of them in. But I just don't think they really have too many great targets. For the Raiders, with Tamale out, we actually see Jed Stewart on the wing, who's a basement price cheapie, obviously Ricky's son. So he's definitely a good buy to monitor before round 18, before that major buy round. So you can jump on this week if you want. You can wait till next week, whenever it suits, or you can do the week after. But it looks like he's going to get a good string of games for the Raiders, who are flying at the moment. Other than that, Hudson Young's been named to back up, which is, similar to Luai. That's a pretty big deal. One-day turnaround, flight all the way across the country as well. So it'll be interesting to see if that sticks. Not too much else to touch on, though, other than maybe a Joe Tarpany, who I think is close to bottoming out, and he's someone that I think is a good buy this week, provided that the Raiders do cover the next major buy, and Tarpany is someone that isn't in no danger of playing Origin as a New Zealand international. Moving on to the Warriors-Penrith game. As we touched on, Penrith pretty much haven't named any of their Origin players, and I think, unbiased here as a Warriors fan, I think the Warriors should win this one. I'll quickly go back as well and touch on my tip in this first game. So I've got the Raiders in this by eight points. So the Warriors should win this one quite comfortably against Penrith without their main players, I guess. As far as purchases from the Warriors, there's not too many that stand out, I guess, with them not covering the major buy. Aaron Clarkson, one of the most traded in. I don't mind it, but I think for myself, I don't have Aaron Clark. I don't have Tarpany. I prefer Tarpany just because he has the buy coverage. And another thing to touch on with Aaron Clark is that his minutes have been going on a downward trend. I think he's played sub 55 minutes for the last couple of weeks, which is a bit concerning. Obviously, he's a PPM beast, but you don't want to be paying that price if he's playing those little minutes. So I'm not sure what to take of it, but I'll be staying away for that reason. Another little pod shout that I like as well is Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. Warriors looking really good. Good matchup this week. Should got a pretty good draw as well coming up, and Roger is on the wing, and he's Roger. He's a good player, so I don't mind him for 577k. But obviously, it's quite hard, as I touched on, to go these Warriors guys because they don't have the major buy coverage. For the Panthers, not much of interest at all here, really. With all their Origin players out, it's sort of, I wouldn't be looking to trade any of these guys in, really. So in this game, I've got the Warriors by 10 points. We'll move on to the Dolphins and the Knights. So this one, I believe, is played in Perth. Yes, it is. So that's good for players like the Hammer and Kalen Ponga, who obviously are in Origin camp, and they don't have to catch a flight all the way across the country to play their club game. So I expect those two to both back up. And I guess the main talking point really from the Dolphins is Herbie Farnworth. Do you just pay up and get him? I think it's a really tough one. I think he is someone that you can anti-pod, but he's also someone that you would be watching with one eye open for the rest of the season, because he just keeps doing it, and he does look really good. But in saying that, I think you guys like Val Holmes and Lomax could match him for the rest of the season. And the Dolphins do have a couple of buys coming up too. So I think it's round 18 and round 21. Other than that, obviously, Bostock is probably the main talking point as a buy this week. He's in one of the most traded ins. I don't like the trade personally. I just think at this stage of the season, if you shouldn't be prioritizing cash gen. Bostock is not a keeper. He's had plenty of sub 40 scores throughout the year. He just happened to get 4 tries on the weekend, and obviously he's got a monster score in his rolling average, and he's going to make quite a bit of cash. Could get up to 170k, 700k, maybe even higher. But it's going to cost you 2 trades, because I don't realistically see how you're holding him for the rest of the season. The Dolphins have had really easy draw, so I don't like the buy personally. If you've got a bunch of trades and you want to boost your cash generation, then go for it. But I definitely lean more towards the no side of that one. That's pretty much it on the Dolphins front. We'll move over to the Knights now. Dom Young is a huge inclusion. He's gone straight from the Roosters to the Knights, which, it'll be good to see. And James Schiller has been dropped. So the Knights, as we know, they also get Marju is cleared of serious injury, and they also get Fletcher Sharp back after missing last game. I think the Knights, at this point in the season, you want to be targeting players with that good schedule, and the Knights have now played the first 2 major buys, and they don't cover the next one, and they've got a couple. They've got another buy, I believe, after that. So I'm not really targeting Knights players at this stage. I think the most highly owned guys are Sharp and Lucas, and I think they're definite holds if you do have them. But I'm not really looking at bringing anyone in from this side. In this game, I have the Dolphins by 8. I think the Knights defense is pretty good. The Dolphins aren't going to get a massive win this week, in my opinion. So now we'll move on to the Rabbitohs versus Storm game. The Rabbitohs and the Storm have named all Origin players to back up by the looks of things. So we'll see how the game goes tonight, obviously, and if that sticks. But at the stage, that's how it is. The Bunnies, they've lost 3 in a row now. It's getting to must-win territory for them, and now they run into the Melbourne Storm. So I'm not looking, even though the Bunnies do cover the next major buy, I'm not looking to purchase any Bunnies, and I don't think you should be. There's no one really there of interest at the moment. The main talking point, I guess, is Koloamatangi, who we thought was going to be out for an extended period, 3 to 5 weeks with a facial injury, but now via the Bunnies website, it seems like more of a day-to-day prognosis, and he did actually train today. So he could even come in to play this week, which is crazy, considering how bad we did think it was. So I don't think he is going to be out for a long time, and I do think he's quite a strong hold, in my opinion, on the SuperCoach front. Obviously, you also see Campbell Graham and Cody Walker on the reserves there too. So it'll be interesting to see if those guys all play, because they're huge inclusions if they do. And the Bunnies do need those big players against this Storm team. For the Storm, not too much to touch on. As I briefly mentioned at the start of the podcast, they have done all their buys now. So this is a great team to target. Who are you targeting though? So I think who Fish is trading in, great targets. Hughes and Eli Katoa, if you don't have him. Awesome targets. They're great prices, and they're keepers. Your guys like Munster and Harry Grant, be interesting to see if they back up. Harry Grant's probably more of a after Origin target, and Munster also, I would say, at this stage, if you don't have him, but a lot of super coaches do have him. Pappenhausen, very strong hold and a very strong armband choice this weekend. He will be my vice captain. I think sneaky guys that you can have a look at as well. Nelson Asafa Solomona. I really don't mind him as a little buy. The Bunnies' middle's not very strong, and he can find his way to the try line. And Jack Howarth, I think he's like 370k, so I don't mind them as a bit of bargain buys if you're doing a bit of bargain hunting. at the moment. In this game, I've got the Storm by 16. Move on to the Broncos versus Sharks. So for this game, Payne Haas and Carrigan are named to back up. Broncos targets. Obviously, the Broncos have gone through their buys as well, and they do play the next major buy, which is huge to note. So they can be targets. But who are you looking at here? Josiah Karapani is one of the more popular trade-in targets this week, and he's a decent downgrade on that Broncos wing. And I do think he holds it, given Selwyn Cobbo, all the, I guess, media around him potentially moving to the Bunnies and Wayne Bennett. So I do think he can hold the spot, and Madge seems like one of those guys who, once you're done with him, you're done, and he doesn't care about your, I guess, pedigree in the team, or that Cobbo played Origin and that Karapani spent most of his career in reserve grade. He will stick to Karapani. He seems like that sort of coach. So I think he is an option, but at this stage of the season, are you really looking to downgrade people or looking for cash gen? I mean, he's a decent option, same as Jed Stewart. Like I don't mind these guys as bias. I prefer them over Bostock just because they free up more funds to do trades elsewhere in your side. Other than that, though, like I quite like Piakura as a bit of a bargain option, and we've talked on Howarth and Asafa Solomona, who I also don't mind. Should play the next buy, pretty good price, and then I guess. Reece Walsh is a bit of a pod as well, as he always is, but I don't think you can really stray away from Tedesco and Pappenhausen. Too locked in, and then Drinkwater is touch and go. You could probably go a Walsh if you wanted to, but I don't think it's going to net you enough points to warrant it. Stags as well is interesting, but I just, personally, I've done my time with experimenting in centre wing with Alamotti and Cobbo early in the year, and it's time to sort of get the big dogs in. And, Stags could do well on this Broncos team, but, we saw him have a blinder against the Titans and get like 120 points. He's not, he's very inconsistent with his SuperCoach. Moving on to the Sharks, we see Talakai coming in for the injured Hiroti in the centres. Another downgrade option who I don't mind. I'll go through at the end, actually, of the team list and sort of do a little quick ranking for you guys on how I rank these guys. Talakai as well, he's a decent option, but how many games is he going to get at centre? The Broncos is not the best matchup as well at Suncorp. So I can see the appeal, but also he's most likely going to turn into a bit of an AE nightmare when he returns to the bench and either Hiroti or Iro comes back. Sharks are one of those teams that don't cover round 18, so I'm not really looking at buying anyone. Nico Hines is a popular trade-out target this week, and he's someone that I'm heavily considering trading out myself. Obviously, Hines, he's one of my favourite players, and he's quite scrutinised when he does play poorly amongst the general NRL community and also the SuperCoach community. But he is a great player, but I guess the reason why you would look at trading him is because you got Hughes there, who's got a really good string of games, and if you've got Hughes and Cleary like myself, Hines and Cleary like myself, Hines only plays one more game than Cleary does over the next few weeks. So 16, 17, 18, 19. Hines misses 18 as well, and then we'd expect both Hines and Cleary to play in 19. So he gets this one extra game this week, and then it's back to reality. Obviously, Cleary is worth more, so he frees up more funds if you trade him. But Nico Hines, for me, just isn't on Cleary's level with Trindle at 6. I think that's a big deterrent. Watching the game last weekend and for a while now with the Sharks, they're just really hot and cold side. Hines is still a very solid SuperCoach option, but I think he would be more than happy to run home with Hughes, who doesn't miss any games from here on out, and Cleary. So saving a trade there, but obviously Hines gets the extra game this week, but I don't think it's worth foregoing Cleary. If you're trying to toss it up, I would try sell Hines over Cleary, and that's what I'm looking at personally. Nakuro is another popular option as well. Obviously, I bought him in last week before his 108, but I think he's still a good purchase this week, albeit they don't cover the round 18 bye. Similar sort of story for Fanor Blake as well. I'm I'd prefer a guy like Tarpany just because of the coverage. But yeah, that's not too much else to touch on this front. I have the Broncos in this one, winning by 6 points. Moving on, we have the Roosters and the Cowboys on Sunday. So for the Roosters, they pretty much line up how you would expect them to, naming their origin players in Spencer Leniu, Watson, and Angus Crichton. So be interesting to see how those guys back up after tonight. And if they do, I'm pretty confident that they all will, barring any major injury. Tedesco is a huge captaincy option this week, and I think he will be the most popular, especially after the Cowboys leaked 50 points last weekend. I think for the Roosters, there's a couple of targets here I actually quite like as pod players, Daniel Tupou being one of them. We saw what the left edge of the Finns did and Bostock did to the Cowboys right edge last weekend. And geez, like Tupou could be in for a couple of tries, and I really do like that matchup as a bit of a pod. I like Mark as well. Just keep in mind with the Roosters, though, they play the major bye round 18, and they also play round 19, but they don't play next week. So you should be able to cover it just fine, but just something to note. So I like Daniel Tupou, Nwanawai Tuase, and I also really like where is he? Angus Crichton as well. Obviously, Crichton will play this week on the left edge again. But I think if you've got the numbers, he's someone that I would heavily consider because I think he's going to be a very popular trade-in target after the Origin period especially. Moving on to the Cowboys, if you're thinking about selling Drinkwater, don't would be my advice. There was only one scenario where I could piece together where the Drinkwater sell would be worth it, and that scenario has been sort of thrown in the trash can now. So it would be if you had Pappenhausen, if you had a Pappenhausen, if you had a Turbo, and you had a Drinkwater, and then you sold a Drinkwater to Tedesco and you held Turbo. But with Turbo sort of being rumoured to be playing centre, I don't think you can do that now. I think you sort of have to sell them off, and there's no other scenario where I can think you would be selling Drinkwater. So my advice would be hold him and give him a bit of benefit of the doubt. You know, the Cowboys team on paper around him was quite weak, and you know, he's one of those guys that needs to be playing on the front foot in order to score well. And when the Cowboys are rolling, you know, when they've got their whole Origin team back, he should do a lot better, and we know what he's capable of. Other than that, not really looking at any other Cowboys targets for SuperCoach. In this game, I have the Roosters by 10. Moving on now to the last game, I believe, of the weekend, and it is the Eels versus the Titans. So for the Eels, we obviously see Dylan Brown has a suspension and Mitch Moses is out for 6 weeks. He's also out of Origin with Luai called in. Lomax is a great purchase, I think, anytime. And I think he, against the Titans, it is very appealing. I see why people are doing it. I quite like the buy. The only thing to consider there is what are your numbers like for round 18? If they're solid, I say go for it. I really like it. Me, myself, like I'm not looking as set up as I was. Losing Ola Kawatu and potentially Kaloa Matangi as well. So I need to prioritise those round 18 numbers. But I do like Lomax as a buy this week. I guess the turn as well with backing up from Origin is that no Mitch Moses. What does that mean for his SuperCoach output? He's got a base really well, but it will affect him a little bit in the try scoring department, especially no Brown as well. So he's got no halves. He's going to have to do it all on his own, sort of thing. No disrespect to Dean Hawkins and Joash Papali'i, but yeah, it's you know, Dylan Brown and Mitch Moses are key players in this side, and Lomax will score better when they're there. Not similar story with the bye. Eels don't cover round 18, so not really looking at anyone else to purchase there because they just don't have the bye coverage, and they've got no one there that sort of stands out as a huge option. I guess you could say guys that have been under the radar and have been relevant at points, Josh Adokar and Jack Williams, you could consider here and there. And then obviously Riley Smith, who I've got at hooker as my reserve hooker behind Sandon, is solid enough. For the Titans, Tino is named on the bench. Obviously, he's carrying a bit of a sternum injury at the moment, so it will be interesting to see if he backs up after Origin, and it's something to be wary of. If you do have Tino on your side and you've held, like myself, try to prioritize putting him with a reserve tag on him, because he might be laid out and then you're stuck with him and you're starting and you can't really move anyone to your bench. It's just for a bit more flexibility on game day, and to ensure that you're not sort of messing yourself over in that front. You got Fafita on the extended bench, and you also got Tukey Simpkins on the extended bench, who is enough that played last week, the week that mattered, that I'm currently holding. So we just talked about Tino potentially being named out. Also watch for Tukey Simpkins coming in, because he could be a bit of an AE nightmare if you are someone that's running low on numbers, and you've got Tukey Simpkins and you decide to do a loop this week, a vice captaincy loop, then that potential low score of Tukey Simpkins, or likely low score of him, will come in and count and you're 18. Brian Kelly's also been dropped, which is huge news. I don't think I've seen that from the Titans, and I thought he played quite well last weekend, so quite surprised with that. I thought they would have picked him in the centre and Jojo Fafita on the wing ahead of Fitzgibbon. But the only other guys to touch on from the Titans, they've got quite a few that on the back of last weekend where they look really good, that are quite intriguing, in AJ Brimson and Jaden Campbell and Bo Fermor. So I think you can lock in Jaden Campbell as a season keeper if you want to go. There. Obviously he's played the major bye now, but this is quite a good matchup for the Titans also. So he's someone that you could look at. Bo Fermor, I think, is bottom out as well. He's got a handy duel. He looked good on the weekend, and Brimson as well at fullback had an awesome game too. So those are three guys that, I quite like those buys too. Just once again, depends on your buy round coverage, on if you can afford to go guys that don't cover the round 18 buy. So that sort of wraps it up for us there. I will sort of touch on my team and my trades for the week, and then we'll maybe quickly do a little touch on most traded in players as well. So for me this week, my side looks like this. I will be vice captaining Pappenhausen and captaining Tedesco, without a doubt. I will be moving Sharp back into my side, playing Billy Smith and Jenkins, most likely. Hopefully Munster backs up. Otherwise, I'll be one of the guys running without a 5'8". But I think a lot of people will be in that boat this week, unless you have Jaden Campbell. So a lot of people have King Tongia, Burden, Dylan Brown, these guys who are all unavailable. Eli Katoa moves here. Kaloa Matangi and Tino will also move there. I will be playing Tuame, and I'm definitely trading Olakawatu for Joseph Tarpany. So that's one trade that's definitely locked in for me this week. Tarpany may play the first game, so it's important that I start them. Reserve Haas, and then that will be sort of my team. The only other trade I'm tossing up is going Hines to Hughes, and I'm more likely to do it than I'm not. As I mentioned previously, I am more keen on the Hines sell than the Cleary sell. You get one extra game out of Hines, but Cleary is not someone I'm willing to go without for the rest of the season, whereas Hines is someone that I am. So obviously there's a bit of a substantial price difference there between Hines and Cleary, but if you asked me last week, I would have said Hines was Cleary was a better trade out because Hines played the major bye. But this week, I believe that Cleary is the better hold and Hines is the better trade out. So that's the side for the week. We'll quickly touch on, I guess, players really quickly. The most traded in. As you can see, I've got the SuperCoach Gold subscription. If you don't have that, highly recommend. So Hughes is the most popular trade in, as you can see. Really touched on that already. Really like the buy. Eli Katoa as well. Herbie, Tedesco. Bostock is someone that I push back against, and same with Aaron Clark. Just because I think both stocks more of a money grab, and we're not that stage of the season. And Aaron Clark, just a bit worried about the minutes, doesn't cover the major buy, and is quite expensive. I think you can get better value elsewhere. Jaden Campbell, good buy anytime. I like it, especially, if you are going to lose a 5'8" like me, potentially, with if Munster doesn't back up, say, and I'm left with no one, then looking to trade a Bird into or a Dylan Brown or King Tonga to Jaden Campbell, I really like it, because then you're not copying an AE. But yeah, Jaden Campbell's a gun, so like that. Talakai, sort of said that I'll give you guys my rankings on Talakai, Jed Stewart, and I believe it was, see if we can, any of these names ring a bell for me quickly. Karapani. So for me, I think Jed Stewart will be at the top of that list, just because he seems likely to hold the spot for a significant stint. He is bottom dollar, and he covers the next major buy. So he would be my number one. Number two, I would probably say, I'm going to say it would be Karapani. I would rather take a dig at him. I would say he's got less job security. Like with Talakai, at least you know what you're getting. You're getting a couple of weeks until Harodi or whatever's back. With Karapani, he could be out as soon as next week, depending on the whole Magin Cobbo situation. So it would go Jed Stewart, Karapani, and then Talakai for me. Move on to number 9 is Bo Fairmore. I do really like that buy, similar as Jaden Campbell. I think he's a good price, good player, good matchup. Can't knock it too much and has a handy duel. And I'll just run up to top 10. Jacob Kuraz. I do not understand this one bit. He's not playing this week. I think if you want to get him, figure out a way to get him next week, and sort of prioritize your trading targets for players that are playing this week. One of the main reasons I brought in those guys like Nakora, Herbie, and Isako is because they all played this week. I'm looking to grab players that play a good stint, so I don't have to, we know how injuries are, and how much they can change the dynamic of SuperCoach in your side. You don't want to be relying on that. You want to get guys that play a good stretch of games, and then could potentially be keepers. Like Herbie's obviously a keeper. Nakora was a good price, and same with Osaka, and they all had good matchups, and they all did really well. So, and they all play this week. So that's why my head sort of leans in SuperCoach is that you got to look at the draw and the best time to sort of buy these players. Like Karaz, after this week, the Dogs don't have a buy. Perfect buy next week. Purchase next week, but I wouldn't be going early, especially spending 753k your cap. Find a way to do that move next week, or free up some funds for next week, or just think strategically about how you can maximize your team for this round, and then think about the rest as it comes. Move on to most popular trade outs. So you got Olukwatu, definite sell. He's got to go. Dislocated shoulder, but he is someone that, someone that owned him, I don't fear going without the rest of the season without him. I'm happy to let him go and say, yep, that's it. I'm not going to own you for the rest of the season. He could have his, games where he tons up, but he can also have his 40. So he's not someone that's going to make or break your SuperCoach season. So happy to let him go at that price and for the period he's out for. Cleary. Touched on it a bit this podcast. I do see the merit in the trade, definitely. But I think if you're a Hines and Cleary owner and you're looking to sell one of them this week, obviously price does factor into it. But if you're looking to sell one of them this week, and price and also your team dynamic, like for me, I'm happy with the 18 I've got when I sell Hines. So it sort of loops me into selling him more. But if I wasn't happy with the team I was putting out, then you'd be more inclined to sell a Cleary, because obviously he doesn't play this week and you get an extra number for the week. So it's totally team dependent, but for me, I'm happy to go without Hines for the rest of the year. There's no way I'm happy to go without Cleary. I've got low trades. I'm low on trades, and I don't want to have to trade Cleary out then back in again. And when you look at it logistically, Hines has one more game this week than Cleary does over the next 3 rounds. So I don't think that's worth it when you compare the two. So that's my 2 cents on it. Turbo, definite trade out. I think with the rumors him being centre, it looks really funny selling him for 480k because like he's healthy, he's fine, but he's not the Turbo we know and love, and he's got the buy and potentially playing centre, so completely fine to sell off. Harodi 100% can sell him. Dylan Brown 100% can sell him too. Fletcher Sharp, no way. I do not like this trade at all. I do not understand why you would be looking at trading him out. I think Fletcher Sharp's he's shown how good of a Supercoach player he is. Every time there's a line break or anything happening, he's always right there in support. A support player is phenomenal. Sort of like a Ryan Pappenhausen mold player. That's how he plays reminds me of Ryan Pappenhausen. I don't like that trade. I think you can hold him. I do see why people are doing it at the price point and the night's tough draw, but he's someone that you can sort of reassess maybe after the buys if you want to go that way. But he's a key number this week. He's a gun. The matchup's not that bad. I think this week's not the week to be selling him. Nico Hines already gave my 2 cents on that. Hosking, I think you definitely hold him. I sold him a couple of weeks ago, but now that, he will play this week, he plays the next major buy, similar to Wyler Tarpany. I think you definitely hold at his price and keep the buy number. Last 2, Munster, I do not like that trade, unless maybe you can justify it more if he doesn't back up from Origin. We'll see how that goes. But at this stage, no. I know he's got a massive break even, but he's the best, or at worst case, he's the second best 5'8" in Supercoach behind Jayden Campbell. I would probably have him ahead, personally. And with the Storms run home, I just don't like that trade one bit. Even if he is out this week, I think trading him out is not the go. Last one, Billy Smith. Yeah, I can see why you would do it, just because he's been so average and not been very good this year. I regret trading him in to start with, but he also does play the major buy, and he's got the Cowboys this week, so he's got to be due for one of those games where he just does a Rob Toyer and blitzes it and gets 150 out of nowhere, or a Tom Jenkins. So hopefully this week's the week. And I'm not a fan of the sell at the price point and with his buy coverage. We'll go one more and then we'll wrap it up. Tino, I definitely see merit in the sell just because he's carrying this injury. He doesn't obviously plays Origin, doesn't cover the next major buy, and he's named on the bench. I see why people would be doing it at his price point and also with his break even. I can't see him scoring too well this week personally, but I do think he's someone that you would want back potentially in your side. So that's why I'm not a fan of the trade. Same as Cleary. It depends what position you're in with your trades, but I prefer a Tino trade over a Cleary trade or any of that, just because I think you can go the season without Tino, but you can't go the season without Cleary. You're more likely to be able to go the season without a Tino. So I can see both sides. I'm a bit on the fence here on this one, how I feel about this. It's totally team dependent, and it's totally team dependent on how many trades you have left. If you're willing to let him go, then can you get him back in, or are you content with not getting him back in your side? Those are sort of the questions you got to ask yourself. That sort of wraps it up for the podcast now. It was a bit of a quicker one today, obviously with me just on the podcast today and with no Fisher, but we'll have Fisher back next week and we'll get right back into the mojo. I hope you guys enjoyed the little solo pod. Didn't bore you too much, didn't talk too fast. Enjoy. Hope everyone does well this weekend and enjoy the Origin tonight. Up the Blues. Thanks, guys.